MG back with you, and today we're going to be diving back into the MGA 1600 Mark II, doing some more welding on the chassis. Let's get going. So today we're going to start working on these rails here, because I need to get these in before I can do any of the floor rails here. So what I've done was I kind of determined where this is going to sit in here and made a mark here and a mark here and measured over to the frame here and how far it stuck out here and cut this off to that length and capped it. I figured it's easier to cap this on the workbench because you can turn it and weld it a lot easier and clean it up so that it can stick through the hole easier. And I've already cut this off. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to just chop out a section of this so that I can start working on getting this dissected out of this rail. When it comes to something like cutoff wheels, buying some cheaper ones from some place like Harbor Freight and buying their mid-grade ones, not the really cheap ones they have, can actually represent pretty good value for your money. Yeah, you'll go through them faster, but you can also spend a whole lot less on them overall if you're going through a lot of them than going and buying the really good ones. But when it comes to the reciprocating saw blades, don't cheap out on these. If you buy cheap blades here, you're just going to regret it. So I like to buy the ones that, at least at one time they called these the rescue blades. It's the extra thick ones, and they won't break off nearly as quickly and easy, and they're good blades that they won't rip the teeth off really easily. So definitely worth spending the money on these. Now I know somebody out there is going to say I'm using this wrong because I didn't have the foot up against that. And you know they're right. But the reason I was doing that is this stuff was much thicker than what's supposed to be in there. And that blade I started with was not a new blade and was already half wore out. I'd cut up a Volkswagen with that. And I was trying to get into newer teeth. But then I just went ahead and decided to change the blade to finish it. Now to get this out of here, you just saw me grinding on it. The idea is to grind on this thing here just to where you get it flush. But don't be grinding into the rail at all. Just get it flush. Do that on both sides. And then we can get in there and get this piece of tubing out of there. And depending on how well you broke the welds, you might have to come in from this side here and straighten these out, which I did a little bit. So now we got some rough edges and places where the weld were so this doesn't quite fit yet. So we just take a file, come in here and file this until this slides through there nice and neatly. All right, so this section in here, which I'd said in the last video, wasn't that much better than what we had here. So I was going to do some sort of a patch here, but I wasn't quite sure where I was going to stop and start, and it all depended on how I dealt with this. But now that I got this out, I'm probably going to go ahead and just cut it right on that edge of the old patch and start from there and work my way forward. So next is clean this whole area up here. Mark it up and cut it out so that I can get ready to patch it. So I got my patch panel cut out, and just as I did on the back side there, we shaped it ahead of time to make it fit the inside of the frame rail. And then what I can do is get it where I want it. We can clamp it on here, then I can draw around the outside of this for a cut line. And then I have some lines here and here, then I can then transfer onto this for cutting that hole out. All right, so now I got that piece all welded in, ground down, and now we can look at that tubing right there. So now I got the tubing cut the length. And what I did was I cut this with a step in it so that when we weld this together, it's not a straight line. Makes it stronger that way. And I got a jack under here because when I did cut this loose, because of the weight of the transmission being in here, this did drop just a hair. So now I got it back up where it needs to be. Now it's ready to weld in. So there's the basic chassis repair done on this side of the car. I got a little bit of cleanup to do here yet because there's some stuff I got to grind out yet before we start the floor rails. But the next time you see this project, that's what we're working on, floor rails. Now, the way I do things here may not be 100% the absolute best way to do it, and I will never claim that. But it is the way that I think works best for me. And if it works for you, then great, it works for you. If it helps you on your projects, even better.